Hey, what's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. This is part 2 of the African-American Colored Champions. Now, these fighters won a Colored Championship title belts. Because at that time, African-Americans couldn't fight for the World Championship. Now, at this particular time, lightweights and featherweights weren't allowed to fight for the titles after George Dixon had defeated a white fighter so badly that they didn't allow them to fight for titles anymore for over 10 years. But the Colored Championship title belt was created in the late 1800s because African Americans couldn't fight for the World Championship titles. You had John O'Sullivan and James Jeffries and Jim Corbett. They refused to fight an African American fighter for the championship. So these belts were created. Now you had African Americans heavyweights such as Al Walker, George Godfrey, who would hold these championships. You would have Sam Langford and Joe Jeanette, who would hold these championships. In middleweights, you would have Jack McVeigh and Harry Smith. A little later on, you would have Charlie Burley and Holman Williams. And you would have a few others. Jimmy Bivens. But in this particular case, we're looking at a lightweight. A fighter who would hold the Colored Lightweight Championship of the world. This fighter's name is Clearly James, also known as Young Joe Gans, but most notably known as Nobby Joe Gans. Now, Nobby Joe Gans would be born on July 13th, 1896 in Grand Island, Louisiana. He stood 5'7" and weighed 126 pounds to 137 pounds. He was managed by Lou Goldman. Now, Clearly James began boxing under the name of Young Joe Gans around black clubs in Louisiana in 1911. He started as a featherweight. He was fighting for the lightweight colored championship of the South. And he would fight a fighter by the name of Rattlesnake Kid Cooper. By March of 1912, in 1913, he fought the famed Leo One Punch Johnson. Leo One Punch Johnson could punch. He was a very hard puncher. And he would have a lot of knockouts under his belt. He fought him 3 times in 1914. Then Nobby Gans changed his name to New Orleans Joe Gans. Gans won a 20-round decision over Black Sharky. Black Sharky, another underestimated fighter. There were a crop of black lightweights roaming around the southern parts of the state. And at that time, you had men such as Leo One Punch Johnson, Arthur Shangal, Young Johnny Brown, Harry Cook, Leo Patterson, Kid Washington. I'm just naming just a few. But there were a lot of them that never got an opportunity to fight for the World Championship belt. And that's unfortunate. But Nobby Joe Gans was favored to defeat battling Jack Russell. He was out of Montgomery, Alabama. And he would earn a draw decision. James would follow up with a victory from a fighter out of Baltimore by the name of Frank Hunter. And another solid draw. This time against Kid Washington. at Baton Rouge. Now he would face Leo One Punch Johnson and the Joplin Ghost, Jeff Smith. Joplin Ghost Jeff Clark, excuse me. I'm thinking of the New Jersey middleweight, Jeff Smith. But Nobby Joe Gans would face Rattling Snake Kid and would defeat him in 10 rounds in 1912. And he would win the Colored Lightweight Championship. 1913, he would face Leo One Punch Johnson. He would face him around 5 times. He would have a 6-round exhibition with Kid Norford. As you know, Kid Norford was a phenomenal African-American light heavyweight. Had the same problem as Nobby Gans and others, getting a world championship title fight. In 1918, he would face Harry Cook on July 4th to win a 15-round victory. But he would lose a 15-round fight to Rattlesnake Kid. And in 1923, he would fight Archie Walker of Cuba. He would lose on a foul in 4 rounds on July 22nd. 1921, he would face One Round Hogan January 30th, and he would knock him out in 1 round. He would face Panama Joe Gans, nicknamed Panama Kid Gans, and he would knock him out in 6 rounds in 1924. 1917, he would face Fast Black, knock him out in 6 rounds on August 3rd of 1921. December 22nd, he would re-win the Colored Lightweight Championship over One Punch Leo Johnson. He would defeat him in 15 rounds. Fascinating story of Nobby Gans. Now, in the last video, I didn't show you some of the opponents of Harry Smith. Let me show you some opponents of Nobby Gans. All right, here you have Leo Patterson. This was an opponent of Nobby Joe Gans. He was a fascinating fighter. Leo Patterson. Now, this was a very, very hard puncher here. And this is Leo One Punch Williams. Fascinating fighter. Leo One Punch Williams, a heavy hitter. Now I'm going to just be a real nice guy, and I'm going to show y'all a couple of more fighters. Not necessarily fought by Nobby Williams, but some African-American fighters at that time. So you can see here, Young Henderson out of Youngstown, Ohio. Very good and strong fighter. Here you have Will Lewis out of Indianapolis. Ruff Carmine, San Francisco. George Henderson, Miguel Harris out of Pennsylvania. Al Bryant out of Newark, New Jersey. Bobby Subbert, another fascinating fighter out of Claremont. One of my favorite fighters, Black Bill. Fascinating. Neil Clisby. Very, very good boxer. Was Neil Clisby. Very strong, but very fast. It's a light heavyweight out of Omaha, battling Monroe. Dancing master. Here you have out of the West Indies, battling Jeanette. Very good fighter. Texas middleweight, Kid Thompson. I have profiles on all these fighters. Phenomenal fighter, and Tut Jackson. Dynamite. Real good puncher. Heavyweight Cecil Harris. Cecil Harris. Now these right here, you're not going to find any of these fighters in your history book. Not going to happen. Here you have Kid Gardner. Very good fighter. I'm just showing this today. This is my Police Gazette African American book. Entire book for African American fighters. Here you have Kid Ash. Young Jack Johnson. He's out of Memphis, Tennessee. Fascinating fighter. So clearly James. Nabi Joe Gans. Salute to him, outstanding color lightweight champion. This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series.